I'm doing these little videos to just try and give a flavour of the different jazzmen that are around. Try and encourage people to listen more widely than just their own favourites. And so I've got another one from The Rough Guide to Jazz, 100 Essential CDs. And this one is Wild Bill Davison, Pretty Wild with Strings Attached. And it's awful. It's really bad. Anyway, this is Davison on trumpet cornet with strings plus with strings attached, Bob Wilbur clarinet, Cutty Cutshaw trombone, Gene Schroeder piano, Barry Galbraith guitar, Jack Leesburg bass and Dom Lamond drums. Wild Bill Davison, the ebullient cornetist from Defiance, Ohio, is one of jazz's greatest brass voices and best loved figureheads. The Wild One, as he is affectionately known, brought his cornet to New York in 1941 to lead his own band at Nick's Club, Greenwich Village, and made classical records for Milt Gabler's Commodore label from 1943 before becoming house cornetist at Eddie Condon's club in 1945. From then on, his playing, a magical meld of rough house creativity at up-tempo and soft-tone Irish sentiment on ballads, became an irresistible object of respect and affection to fans and friends. A classic word portrait of Davison by Carlton Brown may be found in Eddie Condon's Treasury of Jazz, 1957. His powerful, passionate style also presented strong and viable alternatives to the artistic parameters set down by Louis Armstrong, although it took some time for the jazz world to catch up with that fact. And in more recent years, Davison has been definitively recognised as one of jazz music's most individual brass voices. After the mid-1960s, he became an international jazz ambassador, touring Europe as a soloist and living in Denmark briefly before returning to the US with his wife Anne to continue starring at festivals and jazz parties, as well as touring at home and abroad to order. Wild Bill's life and achievements are deservingly documented in a video produced by friend and fellow cornetist Tom Saunders, called Wild Bill Davison, His Life, His Time, His Music, and in a biography, The Wildest One, by Hal Willard. Davison's solo discography is formidable too, but it is only very recently that his two principal masterpieces have been reissued by Arbors Records. The two albums, both with string orchestras, had their origins in a pair of tracks from Gary Moore's 1950s album, My Kind of Music, on which he teamed up Davison with Percy Faith's orchestra, a little like introducing Errol Flynn to a group from YWCA. Moore later recorded the two titles Yesterdays and You Took Advantage of Me worked perfectly and led on to two more complete albums, Pretty Wild, with Faith again, and arrangements by Marty Manning, recorded in 1956, and With Strings Attached, recorded 11 months later with a Condon team of Dixieland premiers plus Barry Galbraith on guitar, and strings arranged by Dean Kincaid. Both records are masterpieces, and such as their chagrin at their long-term deletion from the catalogue, that titles from both albums were re-recorded lock, stock and barrel for a new Davison LP in Copeland. Sorry, not Copeland, that's where I live. In Copenhagen in 1976. Now, however, the originals are back, and they are still classics to treasure. Pretty Wild has his definitive retracing of Ellington's Black Butterfly and yearning almost ruefully in If I Had You, as well as many more jaunty outings on Sugar and Mandy Make Up Your Mind. There is also a Wild Man Blues, comparable though entirely different to Armstrong's. On these tracks, the levels of emotion that Davis conveys through his cornet are extraordinary, moving from brusque joy to the tenderness of a kiss. With strings attached, perhaps lacks quite the emotional depth of its predecessor, but the cornetist once again excels throughout. As soon as I played 3 bars, he said later of his Pretty Wild session, I knew I had the shakes. A simple case of stage fright. So when I asked the conductor to send for a bottle of Scotch whisky, the tension broke right there. Great art followed on too, both times. And I can't agree with anything of this. It seems, well, for a start, the with strings is not with strings at all. The strings are doing something, and while Bill Davison is doing something, and while they don't clash, they don't actually join together at all. It's as though you've got 2 sets of people doing 2 different things that happen to fit, but not playing with each other. And also, the tunes are corny because of the way he plays them. I mean, most corny old tunes can be played really well, but his dull, absolutely dull. And he's got no sort of tone to his cornet, and I can find nothing at all in favour of it, as you're probably finding out from what I'm saying. So this is, I don't know why it's called Wild Bill Davison. It's the most tame record I've ever heard in my life, and his playing is barely above amateur. I mean, I'm learning to play the cornet now, and although I can't play it properly yet, I still feel as though I get a better tone than him, and I'm going to be a better jazz man than him, that's for sure. So that's it really. Not well done.